Some dates feel like hinges in history, moments when the door swings shut on one era and opens to a darker, more uncertain one. December 22nd is one of those dates. It's a day marked not by open warfare, but by insidious failures, broken promises, lethal negligence, and betrayals of the public trust that would reshape America for decades. Welcome! History's greatest mistakes aren't always loud. Sometimes, they're quiet pivots, buried reports, or calculated political plays. Today, we're examining December 22nd, a day that has repeatedly revealed the gap between America's promises and its actions. With devastating consequences, we'll look at four pivotal events from this date. Each represents a different pillar of trust being shattered: trust in a president's word, trust in military leadership, trust in scientific safety, and trust in the stability of our most fundamental laws. The betrayals. Betrayal number 1, LBJ and the Peace Candidate Myth. 1963 Betrayal of political trust. On December 22, 1963, the new president, Lyndon B. Johnson, held a press conference. Seeking to calm a grieving nation and define his presidency, he positioned himself as a man of restraint, stating his goal was to bring about the peace and security that all Americans desire. The promise: he was inheriting 16,000 military advisors in Vietnam. To the public, he presented himself as a domestic-focused, peaceable leader. Distinct from more hawkish voices, the betrayal. Privately, his administration was already planning a massive, irreversible escalation. The Gulf of Tonkin resolution and the massive bombing campaigns were just months away. The mistake was foundational, using the rhetoric of peace to build public trust, while secretly committing the nation to a path of war that would cost 58,000 American lives and millions of Vietnamese. It was a deliberate betrayal of the public's mandate. Betrayal number 2, the scapegoating of the Beirut bombing. 1983 Betrayal of military accountability. On December 22, 1983, the official Long Commission report on the catastrophic Beirut barracks bombing was released. The attack 2 months earlier was the deadliest single-day death toll for the U.S. Marine Corps since Iwo Jima. The finding: the report identified glaring, systemic failures, a lack of defensive measures, poor intelligence, confusing rules of engagement that left Marines as sitting ducks in a war zone. The betrayal. Despite this, the accountability stopped at mid-level officers, the high-level political and military leaders in Washington who placed the Marines in a vulnerable, poorly defined mission faced no consequences. The mistake was the institution protecting itself instead of honoring its fallen. It sent a message that failure at the top would be managed, not punished, eroding trust in military leadership. Betrayal number 3, the smallpox vaccination debacle. 2002 Betrayal of public health trust. On December 22, 2002, in the feverish climate after 9/11 and the anthrax attacks, President George W. Bush announced a program to vaccinate 500,000 military personnel and eventually millions of healthcare workers and first responders against smallpox. The fear, the threat of bioterrorism was real and terrifying. The program was billed as essential precaution. Then, betrayal. The vaccine was ancient and carried severe known risks. Crucially, the administration and the Pentagon downplayed and initially failed to adequately track the serious adverse reactions, including life-threatening heart inflammation, myocarditis, and death. First responders, trusting the government's assurance, volunteered in good faith. Many were injured with little support. The mistake was letting fear override transparent medical ethics, treating citizens as test subjects in a PR campaign rather than patients in a care system. It damaged trust in public health initiatives for a generation. Betrayal number 4, the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act. 2022 Betrayal of precedent and stability. On December 22, 2022, in a triumphant ceremony, President Joe Biden signed the Respect for Marriage Act into law, requiring states to recognize same-sex marriages performed elsewhere. The context: this followed the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade. Justice Clarence Thomas's concurring opinion explicitly suggested rights to same-sex marriage Obergefell were also demonstrably erroneous and should be reconsidered. The underlying betrayal, while celebrated as a victory, This law is a direct response to the Supreme Court betraying its own doctrine of stare decisis. Respect for precedent. The mistake we highlight is not the law itself, but the unstable climate that made it necessary, a fundamental trust that settled. Fundamental rights would remain settled had been broken by the court. December 22, 2022. This marks not a pure victory, but a defensive maneuver in a new era where no civil right is considered truly secure. The common thread connecting the dots. Words versus actions. LBJ using pacifying language to enable the opposite policy. Accountability. -1. Image. Beirut of protecting the institution's reputation over truth and justice. Safety versus expediency. Smallpox. Sacrificing informed consent and care for political and security theater. Stability versus ideology. Marriage Act. The collapse of the trust that legal foundations are permanent. The lasting damage. The legacy of December 22 is cynicism. Each of these betrayals, large and small, drain the reservoir of public trust. When citizens believe their leaders say one thing and do another, when they see institutions circle the wagons, when they feel like political pawns or that their rights are temporary, the very glue of democracy weakens. This day shows us that the most costly mistakes are often the silent ones that erode the faith a society needs to function. Conclusion. Which of these broken trusts do you think has had the most profound impact on America today? Political dishonesty, lack of accountability, public health failures, or unstable rights? Let's have a thoughtful discussion in the comments. If you believe in examining the hard truths of history, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for watching.